isn't it? Okay. Let's go a step further. Oh, I can do this too. It's a little boring all in black, isn't it? I can go to, what color do you want? Red? All right, let's go to red. Let's click on Isn't that exciting? The thing that this program doesn't have is an eraser. Like, I can't erase all this stuff. It's weird. You'd think a program. This is Adobe Illustrator I'm using. It's not really pay for it. Adobe Illustrator? Oh, no, it's really expensive. It came as part of a suite. I'm telling stories. I got to pause. But we're not going to pause. We're going to keep going. All right. Let's do this. Let's call this angle B up here. All right. And we'll call that C. So let's do the same thing, but let's find the sine of angle B. All right. And the cosine of angle B. And I just want to see the relationships between these and the tangent of angle B. All right, so the sine of angle B is the opposite over hypotenuse. So if you're talking about angle B right here, what's the opposite of angle B? It's 5. So this would be what? 5 over 8. This pen, they put this little clicky thing right where you put your fingers, and then it messes up. You see that? Right there where you put, and then it's like a right-click button, and they put it right where you hold onto it. They should have put it like way up here or something. I don't know. All right, so the cosine of angle B, here's angle B. What's the cosine? The cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So that would be what? Square root of 39 over 8. Do you see those numbers? Do they look familiar at all? Yeah? And what's the tangent of angle B? The tangent is the opposite over the adjacent. So that would be 5. What am I doing? I was going to say 8. I pointed to that, but it's the opposite over the adjacent, which would be what? Square root of 39. Do you see something here? Did they like you doing that? Did they like you having a square root on the bottom? Nah. So can you, you can go through the whole process, multiply by the square root of 39 top and bottom, but you should be used to that now. Can you just do that in your head? What would that be? 5 square root of 39, what? Over 39. Okay? Now, but look at the relationship. Look, the sine of angle A is this, square root of 39 over 8. Where else do you see it? Right here. So look, the sine of one angle. Now, what's true about angles A and B? Now, if this is a right triangle, what's always going to be true about these other two angles? They're going to be what? Give me the good fancy geometry word. What is it? Complementary. They're going to be complementary. Do you remember that? Where they add up to 90 degrees? Okay, just getting you thinking. So the complementary angles, the two angles that are complementary, the sine of one angle, and look at the cosine of its complement. What's true about the sine of one angle and the cosine of its complement? They're the same thing, aren't they? Okay, so that's kind of a nice little thing to see. Sometimes that comes in handy. Saves you from doing a little bit of work, I guess. All right, what about look at the cosine of angle A and the sine of angle B. See the cosine of one angle and the sine of its complement? They're the same thing. But look at the tangent. This time we're taking the same trig function, but we're taking of two different angles. What's true about those, about that relationship? This is the square root of 39 over 5, and this is 5 over the square root of 39. So obviously, what's the relationship? They're inverse relationships. Do you see that? So the tangent of one angle and the tangent of its complement are going to be inverses of each other. Okay? Sometimes, again, that comes in handy. All right? You with me on that? All right, let's change to another color. I'm going to try to squeeze something in this little block. Purple. Which one's purple? That one? Is that a good purple? Okay. I'll just click off of there. All right, let's do this. Let's actually find what angle A and angle B are equal to. All right? We've got all these set up, all right? And that's what they do at first. They're going to say, what's the sine of the angle, the cosine? But that's not really what we're trying to do. Okay, what we want to do is try to find what the angle's equal to. So let's do that. If I want to find out what angle A is, look right here. You've got it set up already. You've got an angle A. You could either use any of these three. It doesn't make any difference. If you know all three sides, then you can use any of the trig functions. It doesn't matter. Do you have a particular favorite trig function here? Anybody have a favorite? Let's just use easy. Let's use 5 over 8. Okay, the cosine of A is 5 over 8. Now, do you remember how to do that in a calculator? What do we do? Somebody tell me. Johnny, you know. Tell me. Congratulations. Did you get it for Christmas or something? I don't know what that meant. You have a graphing calculator. Oh, well, just tell me what you would use. Just give me some basic. You're going to put 5 over 8, or I don't need like every single step. But I have a graphing calculator too. Watch this. This is amazing. Watch this. Boom. Is that cool or what? Or what? So it's not cool? Let me see. I can resize it like that. Is that neat?
Is that going to show up on your video?
Yeah, it's going to show up. You kidding me? All right, let's get rid of that thing. I don't know why that's there. Clear. All right, so, okay, Johnny, you got a graphing calculator. What do we do if we want to solve for A? Let's use the cosine. So we use what?
Cosine.
We do? Second cosine. We use second cosine, okay, because we're finding the angle, we use the inverse cosine, all right? Because we're not taking the, because we don't know what A is, so we're not really taking the cosine of this because we don't know what it is. So what we do is we take the inverse cosine of 5 over 8. Now remember, you can't divide by a cosine because a cosine is not a variable, is it? I mean, the cosine is just a word to give you a relationship between two sides. So it's not, you're dividing by a cosine, you're going to take the inverse of the cosine, all right, of 5 over 8. Okay, so now what do? We got 5, and sometimes these don't click, so you got to make sure. 5 over 8. I don't know if you have to close it or not, but I just feel better about closing that parentheses, and we hit equals, and that didn't work. That should give me an angle. Why in the world wouldn't that work? Actually, I know, but I didn't do that on purpose. Right, maybe yours worked and you put the same thing in your graphing calculator, but that didn't. Anybody know? We talked about this last year, I think. What you do is you go to mode, and you have to make sure. I thought I changed this yesterday. Oh, I know what I did. I didn't save it. I didn't save it when I changed it. So right now, look what it's in. It's in radians, all right? It has to be in degrees. We'll talk about radians later. Oh, I got to do this. It doesn't click over. Yours is probably, the regular scientific calculators are probably already in degrees. It defaults to that. For some reason, I don't know why they'd put the radian there. I kind of do because when you get to pre-calc and calculus, you have a tendency to get into radians more than you do degrees. All right, so you just have to be aware of that. So I don't know if you have to hit enter or not. Yeah, I guess you do. Okay, so now let's try it. All right, so we'll clear that. Now let's try it. So we go second function, cosine. Now it didn't just change what's already on there, but, and then 5 over 8. 5 divided by 8. And I close the parentheses. It probably, again, works without closing it, but there we go. That looks better, doesn't it? Now that looks like an angle. I mean, 0.89, you know that's not going to be 0.89, okay? So that would be your angle right there. So what we would say, I'll show you how to write this too. If we use the cosine, the inverse cosine would be this. Inverse cosine of 5 over 8 equals, and let's bring this thing back up again. See, when I click on the screen, that goes away. Let's just say 51.3, okay? 51.3. And what is this? It's not just a number. What is it? It's degrees, isn't it? Because we just found a what? What did we find the value of? Found the value of an angle, exactly. So it's got to be in degrees, all right? So does that look very purple up there? Not really. That's okay. All right, and so that's how you find that angle. You could do the same thing with all these. You could do inverse tangent of, or inverse sine of square root of 39 over 8, and you'll get the same exact answer. You could do inverse tangent of square root of 39 over 5, and you'll get the same exact answer. Okay, it doesn't matter, do you? Yep, I mean, to the decimal, all the way to the end, you should get exactly the same thing. All right? We okay with that? All right, I think we're good with that part of it.